Okay, we call this meeting of the Pullman Salary Commission to order. Dee, do you want to do roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Carnahan, Commissioner Pitzer,
Here.
Commissioner Rembert,
Here.
Commissioner Sayers,
Here?
Commissioner Weatherly.
Here.
Hallie let us know that she was unable to attend today, and I would like to request a motion for her absence.
I move we excuse the absence.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Okay. So can we move right into opening the public hearing, since we would like to do that first?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I would like to open the public hearing at this time. I don't know if we have anybody attending online. Do you have a way of knowing that?
No, and it's. Yes, online is for listening purposes, and we did, due to the inclement weather, extend the ability to send comments in via email address up until 8 o'clock this morning, and I don't believe we received any.
We did not.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll just make sure there's nobody lingering in the hall.
okay. Anybody else in the room have any comments they want to make? That would be a no. So with no public comment available or desired to be made, we'll close the public hearing and begin our discussion on salaries for council member and mayor. Do you have words of wisdom you want to share, Mike, before we start chatting?
I don't know necessarily if they're words of wisdom. I certainly brought the spreadsheet if you'd like me to plug numbers. The City Council did approve their budget last night, and as part of that budget, there was increases in bargaining units as defined by their contracts. There wasn't an increase for the non-represented, but that's something that we're going to be bringing to the City Council at their meeting on the 13th for consideration, because we just received our salary survey from Ameriben during Thanksgiving week, and we've been analyzing it, and it's going to take a little while to get through. It's quite in-depth, and there's some pieces to it that we need to get some better answers on. So we're looking at asking the City Council to provide a COLA for non-reps, and then as we finish the salary survey, come with additional recommendations. So as part of the budget that was originally approved, there is some capacity for increasing salaries in not only the area you guys have purview to, but to that piece as well. But they're mutually exclusive, but I wanted you to know that there was at least that. So if the answer is, Mike, can we afford this? The answer is probably going to be yes. If we start putting zeros behind the numbers that are already existing, that I might jump out of my seat very quickly. It's certainly the purview of the commission to do that, but nevertheless, I do have the spreadsheet, so if you'd like me to run some numbers, I can, but I'll just be sitting quietly and ready to go if you need me.
I hate to put you on the spot, but what were the increases for the bargaining units?
So we just approved the transit unit last night as well. They expired at the end of '21. They're set for 4% next year, as well as police and fire at 4.5% each. Okay. And what we've started doing with some of these bargaining units is we've created a ceiling and a floor, and using CPIW to come up with where the increase should be. So the floor has been 2% and the ceiling's 4.5%, and we look at the CPIW in August for the fall for 2022 for 2023.
Capped or not capped for the future?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Capped or not capped,
Capped.
In the future? Yeah, okay. That
Capped.
was my take.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, with the way that inflation has been hitting that ceiling was not a surprise.
Yeah.
ATU Police are good through 2024. Fire expires at the end of '23. We're close with getting the Teamsters Library put together, and we're bargaining again tomorrow with the Teamsters M&O, and I think we're very close on that one as well. And everything seems to be coming in this range. The transit union, we started with them last July, a year ago, and it's come back around to almost where we originally started. So very consistent with this 4%. So that's how the rest of the world looks.
Okay, thoughts?
Well, you know, when I started looking at this, I found it a very difficult exercise from kind of a market sort of analysis, because what quickly becomes evident is mayors, particularly mayors where there is a city administrator or something of that nature, are clearly not doing this job for the salary, okay? It's more of a sense of community involvement. I very much, when I look at the comps, I very much think that people, and particularly mayors, are putting in more time than they're compensated for. And so, you know, it's unlike, quite frankly, salary analysis that I've done in the past. And I sit here and say, okay, does salary make a difference in allowing some people who would not otherwise run, enable people who are in business or can't spare the time on an uncompensated basis? Is salary a motivator to get people, and do we want it to be, you know, to run? And I think that we have a very active, certainly mayor and council. Clearly, we haven't procured that with the level of compensation we've adopted in the past, or that has been adopted.
I think you're hitting it right on, to be honest, Rob. It really, as I weighed my thoughts, it was more, they're not doing it for the money, but it is nice to have some reimbursement, some funds there to cover some of the things that they're doing, because if it ever did become more of a burden than what the wages provide, I'm concerned that way. I don't want this to be, you know, such a small amount that people aren't willing to do the job because we need it done. But I also do worry that, I don't want to say it, that we don't want to overpay. We've got some excellent people, especially our mayor, in this position at the moment, and that is huge on what he does. And I'll bring in some number thoughts in a little bit, but if you have any thoughts, Ted, I'd like you to share.
Well, I've given this a lot of thought. You know, volunteerism today is on the wane. We all know that if we're involved in various groups within the community. And the reasons are numerous, I suppose. And I thought, wow, you know, the council members, as I remember, were paid very, very little. When I started in 1979 here, and it's gone up, and their responsibilities have gone up. I, like Karen, have seen varying actions by varying council members, various involvement or lack of involvement by some. And even mayors, some mayors who basically were there just to sign documents and say hi, and that was it. So I started some philosophical thinking. You know, what what is the purpose of the money? What's the purpose? And we heard the mayor clearly say it's not incentive. It's not an incentive pay. If it's not incentive and they're volunteers, what's it for? Is it reimbursement? Well, the council does get reimbursed. However, on the other side, this has been a very difficult time. These last few years are extremely difficult for people involved in the political realms, running cities, not only the politicians, but also the actual administrators, the line people. It's been very difficult, and I don't see that easing soon. So do we say, well, this is an incentive to have people come and become members of the council? Is that what we want? I don't think there are any guidelines for being a city council member as far as their participation or action, from what I gather. There are no guidelines, so we can't go there. We look at comparable cities, and that's about all I think that we have to go on at this point. In the future, I would like to kind of have some, I think it would be nice for a salary commission to have some kind of indication of what the council members' expectations are. It may not have to be formal, but I think it's something that the city council and the mayor have to agree upon. I then looked at the mayor. Good grief, this man donates his time. He's involved in a lot of stuff. He has had a job. He worked full-time, was mayor, and doing a lot of things. Now, that's the type of volunteer that we like. And you know what he does with a lot of his money? He donates it. Donates it back to the community. So I don't know where to go. I guess my thought is maybe we should just, at this point, look at what the comparable cities are right now, with a note that we would actually like to have a little more formal guideline as to what the expectations of the council and the mayor are in the future. I think that would assist the people who are the salary commissioners next time. And I guess the final thing is that we want to encourage involvement and volunteerism. We don't want someone coming in here just for the money. And that's what we have not had in the past, for the most part. And so I think that has to be a consideration.
I know when we have been through bargaining processes in the past, and obviously the council and the mayor are not here advocating for raises, but the argument was always, well, you don't have to be the highest paid of the comparables. And the response back is, yeah, but we don't have to be the lowest paid either. And so, there's kind of maybe a happy medium. I think council really is underpaid if you look at comparables. The mayor maybe not so much, but again, like you say, it's going to be very interesting to have somebody come in who even has the ability to provide the kind of time that Glenn puts in.
Right.
If they have any kind of a job, they're not going to be able to, because that man travels all the time and is in a meeting all the time. And so I'm not sure that we should use him as the benchmark to set a wage that may be an overpayment for somebody, not because they aren't willing to do that, but just are not able, because like you said, this is not going to be a living wage contribution. I mean, it's not going, they're going to have a job unless they're, lucky enough to be retired and then have more time. But, that probably isn't going to happen. So I think we would be amiss to, assume that the next mayor is going to be doing everything that Glenn does and should be compensated appropriately. Everything that Glenn does is reimbursed, so that's not coming out of his pocket. But like he said, when you have trick or treat downtown, he was down there doing all kinds of things with different businesses, and it's his money that he's putting in there. He's not bringing little receipts in and expecting to be reimbursed for that. And it, depending on the person, they may not have the personal resources to do that if they don't have, an adequate salary to kind of help offset some of those costs. You don't want it to cost somebody money to run for office, although in the volunteerism, that really is kind of what you're looking for. But, we don't want it to be, to create a hesitation for somebody for running for mayor. Geez, I can't be gone from my job all the time and do all this. You don't want that to be a hindrance either. So I'm a little, when I looked at the comparables, I don't know, just to throw, one of the points that came up in one of our previous meetings is, well, it doesn't seem fair to increase council and not increase mayor. And I don't totally disagree with that, but I think that the council is more underpaid, if there is such a thing in that, than the mayor's salary is, because I know that was increased to really help him cover some of those costs that were coming out of his pocket. So that's just my thoughts on where we're going.
Sure. As I was grasping for additional information, I started looking into things. Falling back, I'm on the hospital board, and I get a stipend for $128 per meeting, whether it's one meeting a day or 10 meetings a day. It doesn't matter the time. And that's a basis that I've learned over the last 25 years. And so it was interesting going, okay, how does that work out for some of the council members? How does that work out for the mayor? If it was $100 a day, well, I think with the mayor, we would be paying him a lot more. So I kind of want to really break out the two pieces and go with one and then the other and try to come up with numbers that way. But the second piece I was looking at is Washington State's minimum wage for next year is going to be $15.74 an hour. A salaried person or a standard person earning, working about 2,000 hours a year, that'd be approximately $31,000 a year. And so I start putting some of these numbers into my head and going, where can I grab a foothold and start making logical sense on a person, our mayor, that is on duty 24/7. It's great that we have a city manager that can handle a lot of those things, but I know that you have to hit him with the questions sometimes. You can't make the final decision. Maybe you can. So I started looking at other places going, how does this relate back to what these people do? As I looked at the city council, I just keep looking at it, and I'll just throw my number out there. I just keep thinking about $1,000 monthly makes sense to me. Comparing to other people, other cities, and running numbers, that's where I kind of stick. And so when it comes time, that's a proposal I'd like to make. I don't know if you want to break them out separately, maybe finish with city council and then go back to the mayor, but that's where I'm at the moment.
Well, oddly enough, that was the number I picked when I looked at things. I think that when I look at the comparables, you've got some at 500. Generally, I think the norm when you look at everything is more in the 1,000 range, and so kind of that was my independent thought as far as council. And I'm not sure we're at a proposal yet, but interesting that Joe tossed that number out.
Well, I looked at Walla Walla because it's closer, I think, And the number of meetings they had a year compared to the number of meetings we had a year, and if I'm correct, they had a significant larger number of meetings for their council members for this year. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if the city I'm looking at the city council. If the city council made as much as the members in Walla Walla, that's $1,000. But would they have significantly fewer meetings? What about the other activities? And that I didn't have a clear answer on. So I'm not saying that $1,000 is out of the realm, but that's a significant increase. I do think that the mayor's salary for Pullman should be equal to Walla Walla's. And I say that based upon the fact that it's more than a city mayor, he's also the chair of the airport board. So I do think the council deserves an increase, but I don't know that nearly doubling their compensation is politically acceptable, I guess is the answer. So, but we're not here to deal with politics. I would not object to $1,000. I would be more in favor of something like $750 or $800 for the city council, a higher stipend, and then let that be addressed hopefully by the next commission if we can get more information about, you know, what the duties will be to the council and expectations. Basically expectations, then it's clear. We had council member and the mayor speak to that, what they do, but and they said that that's kind of a general expectation, but if it was a little more formal, I think that would be good. I know the voters need to make the decision, but quite candidly, most of the voters that vote don't vote based upon what the council members do. It's based upon their knowledge and their visibility in the community, so.
I'm assuming that the meetings on that spreadsheet, the meetings that they have over a period of time was just council meetings, correct?
Not entirely exactly. Those also included like all-day retreats, special budget meetings, anytime that the council, it was an advertised meeting is what we counted, because a lot of councils were working on. So we're trying to figure out a way to, how do we evaluate a city that does an annual budget versus a biennial budget, because there's ostensibly more meetings with the budget. A lot of the folks on the Eastern Washington list is on a 2-year budget, so that off year goes down a little bit. But there's still retreats and goal setting and those types of things. So those were included.
Okay. And then we wouldn't know, I don't think, from the other comparable cities. But each one of those council members also has either Pollution Basin Aquifer, has the Left Board, has, you know, more committees that they're each assigned 1 or 2 of those committees. So they're going to have to attend those meetings as often as they call those meetings. Some, I think, are more labor intensive than others, but I think that would add to the number of meetings that they had to attend or were expected to attend.
Yeah, and one of the difficulties in looking at this data is it's hard to tell the level of involvement other councils had, and in fact, as I look at those meeting days, they're all pretty consistent in the lower to mid 60s, except Walla Walla's an outlier at 99. And whenever there's an outlier, I kind of say, okay, what explains that? Is it reporting, or is it really? I mean, it could just be that they hold more meetings. I mean, there's some management style differences that could exist.
I'd want to double check this, Rob, but I believe over that same period, Walla Walla was going through a master plan process. That had some more meetings, but I really got to double check that. It's not salient today.
Right. Well, and if it's something like that, then it's cyclical. Their norm may be in line with everyone else. You know, certainly there are times where in any organization, there's going to be more meetings, whether it's master plan or budget or whatever. So, I mean, that could turn around in the next survey, in my mind.
Can you refresh our memory on what, when this will actually take place? I know it's not just immediate, it's at the expiration of a term? for
No,
the
it'll be
council?
January 1st of '23.
okay.
And so the change in having a salary commission is the salary commission will meet an even number of years to set it for the next 2-year process. And then that takes the discussion away from the council discussing their own raises.
So it won't be the next, so the mayor in January would get an increase?
If that's what the salary commission decides, yes.
Okay. Because it used to be if they had to wait till the next election cycle. That no longer is the case.
Going with the salary commission setup like we have, that is no longer the case.
My understanding is it's only if they set their own salary to mean that they don't vote
Okay.
on their own salary
Thank you.
increase.
So does this commission then have the parameters to say in 2023, we would like council to go to just like 600 to throw something out, and in 2024, we want it to go to 800?
Sure.
So it doesn't have to be, okay, right today, we decide it'll be this, but because I don't see the level of inflation dropping significantly, you know, in a year. So, yeah, I don't know, I want to make sure we know that we aren't stuck with, okay, let's go to the highest one today, but we could graduate it in over the next couple of years as well.
Absolutely, and if you felt even more, you could do it by month, by quarter, by half year.
Oh, that's a payroll nightmare. We're going to.
I just want to make sure you had the full,
I love payroll.
Good
I don't wanna do
personnel
that to 'em.
person.
just want to make sure you had the full menu.
You don't want a percentage each month increase.
But I like Karen's idea.
I do too.
Are you going to put that in the form of a motion?
Can I try?
Sure.
Sure, my thought is for 2023, the rate be 800, and in 2024, 2024, the rate would be 1,000
For council members.
for council members.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? I couldn't hear
Sure.
you.
2023, $800 per month stipend, and 2024, $1,000 per month stipend, city council.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. Those in favor?
But we have to have a second.
Is there a second?
Okay, here's a motion.
I'll second the
That
motion.
helps, Rob. Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Okay,
I like that, graduated.
Yeah.
That kind of eases us forward rather than pushing, so thank you. That's great input.
and then we can deal with the mayor.
Yeah, a lot of thoughts on that too, guys. And if you guys want to speak up and put numbers out, but I will tell you, as I started and went through, my foothold really held out at 30,000. And then I thought, no, it's not, that's too much. It was too high of an increase. And then as I walked around and started playing with more numbers, I thought, you know, 2,000 a month would be a number that I would feel satisfied with. That's 24,000 a year. I feel that our mayor does a lot. Whether it's Glenn or the next one or the past one, they do a lot. And the number isn't that large in comparison to some of these other places, in the sense that we don't know the last time they gave their people increases either. And so I just thought 24,000 a year would be an acceptable range. But you guys might want to graduate that. I like that idea, sorry. I really,
Well-
I thought, rather than a major jump, we might,
I understand. I don't agree with that totally, because I think $1,500 is a significant amount. And I'm not looking at Glenn, I'm looking at the mayor's position. And again, if the guidelines and the duties were more clarified, I just feel that the history of the mayors, and it's been up and down as far as their involvement and what they can or can't do. And Karen, I think, eloquently pointed that out. And I think $1,500 a month for a volunteer, even for Glenn, I think that's pretty good. So I would state that I believe $1,500 a month for the next 2 years would be more appropriate, and let the next salary commission have a shot at that, although we've significantly increased the council's salary and brought it within at the end of, if my proposal were to go through, at the end of the term, in 2024, they would be $500 less than the mayor's making. So that's just my point of view. However, I actually will go along with what the majority feels is appropriate.
so can I ask a question? So currently he's at $1,417 per
Right.
month. And so you're thinking that $83 increase.
Bring it at even $1,500.
Okay. And what year was that established? Was it 2004?
16, I thought.
No, the mayor
No, that
was done
was-
more recently.
Was it?
No.
No, I think the council was done more recently.
Yeah.
Let me take a look at a couple of my notes. I think the mayor hasn't been reset since 2009, but do you have board docs open?
I do.
Would you pull up the first meeting of the salary commission, please?
Yep.
Presentation. Let's try that one. Okay. Okay, this one or the other.
Looks like 2008.
2000,
Yeah.
yeah, council in 2016, the mayor's been at the same place since 2008.
8.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was one of, and I was thinking 6, so, and so I just felt that it's a long time and a low number. 2008, if you just look at the minimum wage back then, a lot different number. And I know that doesn't mean anything, but that's kind of where I was pushing up, and that's where I took it all the way up to 30 and started pulling downward, going, okay, what's a fair number to, anyway, so that was just my logic, so.
So do you know, obviously, we have a pretty unique situation with the airport where it's made up of 2 city sets of representatives. Do you know with the other comps if the mayor serves on the airport board or anything like that?
Taking a look at things like that, I think is a combination too, because you look at all those other cities that are set up on a city manager form
Right.
of government, that's different than a city administrator, where the mayor here is the CEO. And in those other forms, the city manager serves a lot in those positions. The mayor and council members will also serve, but they defer a lot of the outside work, as I guess the best way I can explain it, to the city manager. And a lot of those have a deputy that does a lot of the inside work. Where in our form of government, with the city administrator, I'm very focused on the inside work. I do a little bit of outside, but the mayor is the CEO. I'm more of the COO. So just a little different, and you can see that in the compensation between the city manager position going into that. Looking at the other cities, trying to think of who has the airports, Wenatchee, I don't believe has the city involved. Walla Walla, I believe, does. I'd have to go back and take a deeper look and see exactly on that.
Right, and of course, I've looked at these numbers a whole lot, and that explanation is kind of interesting because it kind of makes our comps us unique, i.e. unlike them, because 3 of them have a city manager structure, and then one does not have a city administrator and I'm talking about Wenatchee, or manager, but has a full-time mayor. And so you look at them and say, okay, if the city administrator structure suggests that the mayor is more involved in outside sort of representation, it makes it hard to compare to a city manager sort of style or a full-time manager in my mind. When I looked at this, my number for city council was 1,000, and really just kind of arbitrarily, and in part, expecting not Glenn, but a normal sort of involvement for a mayor, which I do think is pretty intense from what I've observed, even a kind of I couldn't do it and work my profession and keep my doors open, I'll tell you that. My number was $1,750. Now, I was thinking that being effective January 1, but I think I could get behind a kind of a graduated, with 15 or 16, in 2023. It's hard to believe we're looking at 2023 next month, or next month tomorrow. Perhaps something in the 15, 1650, 16, and there's nothing magic about the numbers, 16, and then a step up to 1750 in 2024. Might make sense, and I'm not making that as a motion, just kind of a discussion point in my mind.
Yeah, I think I agree with Rob. I think one of the most important things in public sector service is that you are accountable. And so what you do or what you offer or what you pay has to be, there has to be some kind of justification. And so when we look at the comparables, that's always granted it's kind of the easy one, but you can guess, okay, these cities are about our size, they're doing pretty much the same thing we are, they're never going to be doing exactly the same, because Pullman is a little off in different areas. So I thought the $1,000 for council and the graduated thing was great. I would be in favor of the mayor going to, like Rob said, like $1,500 in 2023 and $1,750 in 2024, just because, again, cost of living is going to increase. Because you've got then something that you're tying it to. The closest, Walla Walla is probably really the closest comparable, is at $1,500 now. The 1417, if I remember correctly, we just picked out 1417, we were going to pay him $17,000 a year. And so if we're going to pay him by month, now it becomes this weird number of 1417, not a reason that's why it was there. So to go, okay, we want to pay the mayor like $2,000 a month, there's really nothing to tie that to for justification on, well, why did you do that? Why did you put the council at a comparable, but then the mayor you put at way above a comparable? Does that make sense?
Sure.
And so if we had to answer those questions, what would that answer be? Well, we just thought that's what they should be, but that's hard to justify to make, because some people would, well, go ahead, Mike.
I see where you're going. I think there's another piece I could offer to help with your deliberations is you look at some of these comparable cities where the mayor has the city manager form of government. The mayor often is that city council member who is, okay, who's going to be the mayor this year? Okay, you sign the papers, you do the ribbon cuttings, you have these additional duties. And so there's not so much compression between the mayor's salary and the council salary when you look at that, where this city does have a mayor for mayor duties, separate of the council, airport very specifically as well. So it is a little different color looking at ours as well. So if you're looking at it in such a way, you know, how does it compare to Walla Walla and those types of things? There is a worth discussion, a small compression issue, and I think that's what you were working towards.
Mm-hmm.
Do we happen to know, I'm finding that really interesting. I still kind of want to know, when is the last time some of these other cities made a change in their salaries? I mean, is everybody kind of sitting in the same spot where they're looking back to 2008 and going, 14 years ago is the last time we made a change?
No, I think there's been a lot more recent, there's a lot more cities adopting salary commission forms. So the electeds don't have to have these discussions because then they can become quite contentious. Yeah,
I hate to go down a weird side road and sidetrack this conversation, but one of the things that I found kind of interesting in just all of the cities by population is some of the hybrids, and I don't think I'm prepared to make a proposal on this, but for instance, Lake Stevens had a number, and am I looking at council, where it was $596 plus $80 a meeting, and I do kind of think that that's a council number. Of course, the mayor, it was a full-time mayor, but that is something that I find attractive, perhaps setting a lower monthly salary, but a per meeting sort of reimbursement, because that then more fairly compensates someone who is attending 10 meetings a month versus 3. I just don't know the impact of that and, what that would mean financially, or really where it would be appropriate to set those numbers, But
I think record keeping becomes a nightmare.
I agree.
And I would hate to have all those extra hours of somebody going, okay, let me validate and verify that they attended these meetings, and then make sure the
Right.
person was paid. And so I don't mind the system. I know record keeping wise and payroll would really prefer if we didn't go that way.
Right.
I think I'd be more in favor of, I don't know, what do you call it, a stipend, or what are you going to call it, but an increase in that monthly for the number of outside agencies. Like in Glenn's case, you've got the Association of Washington Cities, you've got Municipal Research, you've got,
is it TIB the
yeah,
end of this
TIB,
week?
that's the other one. So you've got those that bring a great deal of value to have representation in those organizations. They bring a lot of value back to the city. So if there was, an additional amount added to that monthly wage for each one of those that they belong to. Because you can't just say, I want to be on your committee. I mean, they have to ask you, or there's an election that they run for the Association of Washington Cities. So I mean, there would be an effort on the individual's part to be on those. So that would increase,
So would you think a stipend not for meetings?
Yeah, not for meetings, but
for
being-
board meeting,
yeah,
you know, if
being
you're
a
a
member of-
representative?
a board outside of the city. Does that make sense? Because that's pretty easy to track. You've been elected, you've been, you know,
Would you consider a cap on all the different outside boards to be involved in to keep the future person from?
yeah, I think that's a good idea. You know, I think that you don't want them joining and volunteering for every outside, and then they're never in the city either. So, you know, whether it's up to $150 additional per month for elected appointments outside of the city, or, you know, whatever that might be, maybe to make it a round number, you know, I don't know, 200 or whatever, with a maximum of 4 or, you know.
I'm having a hard time with the math here.
Well, say if Glenn, we're going to give you 50 extra dollars a month, or 100 extra dollars a month, whatever, for being on the Association of Washington Cities Board, $100 a month for being on TIB, that might be a little much, but,
Yeah,
you know,
right, right.
$100 for being on municipal research with a cap of no more than like $300 a month. So not letting it get above 2,000, but yet then if somebody comes in, a new person comes in who's not as connected and isn't doing all of the craziness that Glenn has to do, but maybe as they become more networked and involved in the state and state agencies, they would be, you wouldn't be overcompensating them for something that they're not going to be doing. But the potential to compensate them if they do is there. Does that make sense?
No,
Yeah.
I'm following,
Okay.
I'm tracking.
I think that kind of goes back to where Ted said, it'd be nice to have a list of expectations. Because I worry about, well, those, let's just say that person finds 3 committees and those are great, but what if we really want them in this other committee, or they find strong interest and that's not a reimbursable
Right.
committee? And so, and I don't know which ones are important.
Well,
Yeah,
and
how-
some of them, like I said, you don't get to just say, I want to be on your committee for some of them. I mean, you have
Right.
to be, they have to request that you, hey, why don't you run for this position as the Eastern Washington representative or
Right.
whatever. And then you have to go through an election process to be on that. So it's not just something that you could say, okay, I want to do this, and they go, okay, you're good, we got you. There's a couple that are probably like that, but there is a value to the city for representation on those outside committees as well.
Yeah, but I'm where Joe is. I'm not sure how I would structure that list and be competent, be confident that I'm competent enough to make a rational, okay, $100
Well,
for
if there's a
this or-
limit on it, though,
Yeah, right.
you know, no more than 3, you know, and that could be a discussion, really. Is that a super benefit to the city, this committee, whereas this one might be, and, you know.
And who would be good at setting up that list? Would it be the city council looking into that? Would it be the administrator looking into, like, what things they think the mayor should be attending?
Or would be beneficial.
Yeah,
I think that would-
beneficial
City.
both ways.
Yeah, I think that would be a good discussion with Mayor Glenn as he's moving out, because he would be able to tell you, I really enjoyed my time on this, but I'm not sure how much we got back from that. But I know on this one, it was huge.
Yeah, like TIB, he's voting on $514,000 coming to Pullman.
Right, it's
So
huge to
it's
have that
been
representation.
very big on that
for that
one.
type of thing. And he would know more
Yeah.
than, you know, we would. But again, it comes back to being something that's justifiable when you say the value that we can attach to that position's membership in these committees coming back to the city, as opposed to we're just going to pay you to go be on as many committees as you can find, because that's not going to come back, there's not going to be a value to that necessarily. Thoughts?
Yeah, the municipal MRC, problem is,
And there could be others that come up in the
Right.
future. That's why I would hate to limit the list.
yeah, I
Because there
mean,
could be others that come up in the future that, hey, this would be great if we had a representative on that one, and the opportunity arises to do that. So I don't think I'd want to pigeonhole it as only these 3 or 4, whatever, but cap it at, if we raised it to $1,500 and then $100 a month for up to 3 additional, that puts that wage at the comparable of Walla Walla, so you can justify that wage should they not belong to anything. It's justifiable when the new mayor comes in that you're making what the Walla Walla mayor would make. But yet then we, as a city, are attaching a little more value that we don't know whether Walla Walla does that or not. But, the potential for the value of that for additional compensation if they belong to these other up to 3 groups.
I kind of like that. I think I would say capped at $100 for up to 3 as a governing representative or as a representative on the governing body of an organization, just to distinguish between being a member and going versus being on the board or an officer.
Yeah, I just kind of look at it and go, a little bit hard to track.
No, because those memberships are usually for 2 to 3 years at a time.
Right. I'm not there. I'll just be honest. I think it's kind of difficult. So if that person really puts a lot of time, effort, and energy, but never makes it on the board, never gets voted in, and they are bringing back valuable resources, but the current board is locked in, and there's, let's just say, even better people than our person is, should they quit that because that's not getting them their stipend? To me, it's let's set up the criteria of what we want this person to do and make the stipend just a number, for the monthly annual stipend. I just worry about trying to push somebody to become a leader. What if they're a great representative, but again, just never sitting on the board? What if they're, I don't know, what if they're a business person in town and to attend all these meetings doesn't really work, but as the leader or the governing board, but yet they're still pulling in valuable resources. So I'm just struggling with forcing that level of detail. I also struggle with how does a person, Glenn's been around for long enough that he's worked his way in all those things, so people automatically see his abilities. What if the next person isn't that outgoing, extroverted to be able to step into those spots? I don't know. I'm just not quite seeing. Go for it.
Can I see if I can reframe your thought here, Joe, because I'm working my way through it too, to see if I have anything that I can add, is what if our known quantity, Glenn, who's on MRSC valuable, TIB valuable, AWC valuable, okay, there's this extra $300 and whatever else he's doing is whatever else he's doing, but let's say the next person isn't on these boards, but has somehow maybe worked with our legislative delegation to bring $1 million into a budget to get some projects done here in Pullman. What's the value to that compared to being on a board? Is that kind of where
that's
you
kind
are?
of the direction I'm going.
Oh,
Is
okay.
I don't want to force it. I do want to set up parameters. I really think that's the important part, but I don't want to necessarily tie those parameters to the stipend that the person's receiving as that role.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to tie it to Ted's need for an expectation. If we're going to pay you more money, we have an expectation that you're going to be involved in some governing bodies outside of the city that bring value to the city, rather than pay them a bunch of extra money and then they're not in a position where they can do that, because it may not be. I mean, Glenn spends a lot of time at these, so if they can't do that, we don't want to be overcompensating them. Not to say they're not going to bring value, but they're not doing something extra. So then we're paying them arbitrarily above what a comparable would be paid, and no justification for why we would want to do that. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. I'm just not sure I believe in these comparables. So that's where I went out and started looking at things of, you know, comparing the 2008, again, minimum wage to today's. Why did it go up? Everything went up. That's just where the CPI is for the state of Washington. So, so I don't know. I couldn't tell you enough things that Walla Walla, Wenatchee, Moses Lake, and Ellensburg do. I can't explain what roles, you know, that their different things do. All I really can look back and go, this is what we have in Pullman, this is what we're doing. And I know that really we should be basing it on something. I'm just going with different numbers than what another city does. Because I can turn and go, well, but look, a full-time mayor is receiving, you know, $6,000 a month or $9,000 a month. We could use that as a comparable. It's a comp. It's just not full-time versus part-time. So, but how many hours are we expecting? How much are we expecting? Because a full-time mayor is probably working 24/7 as well. And so, I don't know, right? That, again, that's why I was looking for footholds going, why do we just compare against these ones that may not have raised their numbers? Or like he said, you know, the city council may say, oh, your turn, you've been here. Your turn to pick it up. You're really just receiving an extra 1,000 over your city council bump. I don't know. I mean, I just don't know if these numbers speak to me that way. So that's all. But again, I will continue to say, I love what Ted brought up and said. And when Glenn gave us his list of things that he does, I want that to be kind of a standard, but I'm just not sure who sets that standard.
Right.
Is it us? I mean, should we be? No, okay. You know, and so are we ready to do something with the mayor? I mean, I think it would be good for us to do some sort of increase with the expectation that the city council does something to help set up, or whoever in charge, to help set up what the parameters of the mayor will be, so that this future board, as we sit down, or whoever it might be, can go, all right, this is the things that we really see, or that the city really sees and expects this person to do. Now we have something to attach it to.
Yeah,
So-
I think Glenn didn't get to where he is now, like overnight.
Right. Oh,
Right.
definitely.
So whoever comes in is not going to be involved in everything that Glenn is involved in. I mean, personality-wise or otherwise, they're just,
Right.
they're just not, because it's taken him, you know, to a long time to establish the networking and the relationships that he has with all of those committees. So I guess that's why I was thinking the incentive to belong, because as they develop into that role, then they would bring on those. But if there's nothing set, if we're just paying you this amount of money, we're not going to pay you if you do this stuff, then we can't really justify a higher wage. And I know
Yep.
my mind, I accept the fact that my mind is stuck in a bargaining mentality, that you have comparables. It's just kind of been like this for too long. But you that's because that's what you have to fall back on. This
Right.
city is about our size population. They have this, they have that, they
Yeah.
have that. And so that's what everything kind of falls back on all the time. They may not be exactly like us, but they're going to be closer to us. And their cost of living is probably going to be more similar than it would be if we pulled somebody, you know, off the other side of the state.
Yes.
We
Yeah,
just-
and
we don't play with
e-
them.
even if we look at the other side of the state, though, part-time mayors, they're pretty consistent as far as the grouping of numbers. I'm gonna make a motion not advocating it heartily, but to stimulate discussion. I'd move that we set the mayor's salary compensation for 2023 at $1,500 and 2024 at $1,650 with additional compensation for up to $100 a month for up to 3 outside governing body well, holding office is either an officer or a governing body for TIB, Washington Association of Cities, and MRC, or such other outside bodies as the city administrator deems advantageous to the city of Pullman.
Those are wiggle words for you. Just
Yeah.
Feel the power there.
WFOA, you've got,
Yeah. Can I,
So, well, but right, we're in a motion.
we're in motion.
okay, so,
Maybe I should
Rob's made
withdraw
a
my
motion.
motion.
is there a second? I'll second, just to open for discussion.
Here's what I think I heard, respectfully, of course, that, you know, maybe the next guy is not going to, next person, I apologize, is not going to be in the same position that the current mayor is in to be able to get on these boards and do all these things. But you're going to incentivize that next person an extra $150 a month because Glenn leaves office in 2020, at the
Right,
end of
that's
2023.
kind of my cross-thinking, is have a reasonable sort of level that is consistent with the comparables as I see them probably going in 2023 and 2024. Give some incentive for all-star mayors, current and future, you know. And you know, with specifically Glenn, I would have no hesitancy with a number far north of what just because I see what he does, and he's damn well worth it for the city, okay? But having said that, I'm kind of pushing for something that would be reasonable when a new mayor comes in, defendable, but leaves some compensation available for someone who really does participate to a higher level.
So 1,500 plus 3, Glenn's going to be at 18 because we've already checked those boxes. The next person's starting at 1,650 with a maximum of 1,950. For my own self-preservation, can I offer a comment that I hope you turn into an amendment? Since I report to this person and they'll be going, come on, Mike, give me the $100 a month, can you make this subject to the city council instead of the city administrator? As to if the group that person is involved in passes muster.
I think that would be fine.
I think that's a good thing. I think
Yeah.
that takes the burden off of you of being, you know, somebody accusing you of henny picking, which ones you want him to be on, and yeah, you don't need that. So, you know, come to the council and say, you know, the mayor has the opportunity to be on this. We feel that it falls under those parameters. What do you think?
Thank you.
I'm
Mrs.
fine
Urban
with a
thanks you.
friendly amendment. My other suggestion was, you know, perhaps we could approve a list, but then it's not
So-
very dynamic moving forward.
So your amendment is that instead of city
Administrator.
supervisor, administrator, manager, okay, city administrator, that it would be the city council.
That decides the list.
So that's a friendly amendment that you're making?
Yeah, it is, yes.
And Karen
Okay,
seconded?
I'll second that
And
friendly amendment.
there
as
we
well.
go.
So just to clarify, it's per
Governing body,
governing body, thank you. So up to $300.
up to 3.
Yeah, so like Glenn would be at $1,800 a month.
Right away, because he's
away.
already participating in.
And then the next person who would be in 2024 would come in at $1,650 with the potential of, because again, it's probably going to take them a while to get networked and into those committees. They don't just automatically say,
Yes.
you know.
I don't love the committee or the additional. I think it's a bit of a record-keeping nightmare, but I'm not against where this takes us. So, if that makes sense. I'd love Dee to give any input on, does that cause conflict on tracking? Because if the person steps down, is it, I mean, I guess I don't know these committees that these people, that Glenn is on. I don't understand them very well, so.
As far as the duration.
Yeah, duration
how-
and the setup
right,
and, you know, everything of that nature.
Right.
And then to also help clarify, I guess, for our minutes, that these are committees, commissions outside of his normal job responsibilities. So since automatically on the airport as the deal, that doesn't count. This is more and above. Okay.
And it's not a, usually the appointments are at least 2 years. I know with AWC, they're at least 2 years. And some can just be reappointments. And so to change the wage is very easy. It's just a personal action form and take that off.
I would agree to this when we vote, so I'm not against that.
Yeah,
one.
I don't think that's a difficult thing to change. I mean, if you were doing it every month, yeah, I wouldn't want
Yeah.
to present that to payroll.
Yeah.
But as long as it's just, you know, maybe once a year or once every 2 years or, you know,
Right.
whatever. And the doing it by the month also takes away that problem of, well, I was appointed in January, but now you're not giving me anything until the next January. You can start it at any time or stop
Right.
it if they resign for some
Yeah.
reason.
I want it to be easy, that's all. I don't want to have to,
Payroll and easy
Yeah.
don't go together.
well, that's why I'm saying, if it's just standardized, it's really
Yeah.
easy. If it's
Yeah.
not, I don't want somebody to ever have to reimburse back to the
Yeah,
city
and that
and
is,
not know that they owe the money to the city and have some big, you know, audit and, you know,
yeah,
person
that,
you
that,
owe us.
that is my concern,
Yeah.
even as I made the motion, you know, what happens if someone resigns or their term ends, does that catch up with payroll? And I think there are potential pitfalls here.
Yeah.
I can tell you, not knowing what will happen January 1st of 2024, something I think about a lot. But in the current situation, there's several opportunities on at least a weekly basis, almost a daily basis, that I'm able to keep up with the mayor and the different organizations that he's involved in. Hence, I knew he's up in Bellingham for TIB. It's hopping on the 145 out of here. We do our Monday morning executive management team, and he usually briefs us on what his week is like, including these different meetings, so there's that. I have my daily check-ins with him as well. And I think there's plenty of opportunity to communicate. It's just going to have to be incumbent upon the city administrator, probably just put something in my calendar recurring saying, it's start of another month. Did you hit your $100 on this, or we still capped out at 3? And I think the cap out is a huge piece that'll help keep that in between the ditches. So thank you. We don't know until we try it. So
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a
and I'm
friendly
agnostic
amendment.
about this. I'm sorry, very agnostic.
Do you want Rob to reiterate what his motion and friendly amendment? or-
Yes, so I could take it word for word.
Okay.
So speak slowly.
Okay, that's hard for me, but I move that we set the mayor's compensation for the year 2023 at $1,500 a month. For 2024, $1,650 a month, and that the mayor be able to be awarded $100 a month for up to 3 positions for outside positions in the governing body, either as a board member, officer, or equivalent, for entities that the mayor would not otherwise sit on as a function of his or her ordinary duties. As approved by the city council, yeah. But I would have the motion include that we specifically approve TIB, Washington Association of Cities, and MRC as appropriate outside bodies. Did that make any sense whatsoever to anyone?
It did. It did, and this is being recorded, so I can help Dee with the wording on that as long as the commission feels like they understand. Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope.
Wow.
And then do we have minutes to approve?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so we have the minutes of the meeting of November 7th. Is there a motion to approve them as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? And I believe our work here is through.
Thank you very, very much for taking time out of your holiday schedule and coming and doing this important work. Once you adjourn the meeting, the Salary Commission is disbanded and you can go about your daily lives again. We'll reconvene a Salary Commission in 2024, and if you guys had a lot of fun and you'd like to do it again, certainly would love to have you all back. Good news is we can't ask you more than 2 times in a row to do it. So we've given you a out here after the next one, if not sooner.
We'll see how unpopular we are after the first round.
So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Second?
Oh,